OTB in 10, fantasy banter in 10-ish minutes or something, and we will start with the story that is sweeping OTB. A year removed from a heartbreaking Super Bowl defeat, Sweet Home Chicago is the team to beat, and that is not a question, that is not a debate topic, that is a statement of fact. Sweet Home Chicago has now won 7 straight games, 2 shy of the OTB record set by Shipwreck a few years ago at 9. They have not gone under 100 points yet this year. They haven't gone under 110 since week 3. They are 2 games up on everybody. They lead the league in points. So Garcia, I guess the question is, how long will this last? Do you anticipate them breaking records? Do you anticipate them losing again before a Super Bowl appearance? What do you make of the amazing phenomenon that is Sweet Home Chicago?
The phenomenon is going to be a reality, and that is he is going to win his first title. Long overdue, and it's finally come. He's put everything together. There is no flaw on this team, even despite having a potential injury or 2 on the squad. It's a pretty cemented fact that Mr. Ian will have his first crown when the year is over. So we might as well give him the pat on the back now, the cheers for him, because there's no stopping this train. It's going straight through. It's on the express to grab that title. He clearly has the momentum. There's nobody right now that I think can put up a battle against him when it comes to playoffs. He is firing on all cylinders. I don't think he's peaking too soon. So let's give him the title now. Let's end the season, and let's just go back to our regularly scheduled programming.
I'll tell you. So you look at this team, and first of all, you look at another remarkable draft. Keenan Allen and Kenny Golladay come to mind right away. 2 players that had ADPs that I didn't agree with, quite honestly. Well, I will say, actually, no, I didn't agree with Kenny Galladay's ADP. I thought there was some flukiness to his touchdowns last year. That is not. I'm wrong there. Keenan Allen, the ADP was reflective of his risk of we didn't know the quarterback situation. We now know the quarterback situation. Justin Herbert is playing outside of his mind, and Keenan Allen is all of a sudden a viable wide receiver 1 every single week. Alvin Kamara, enough said there. Christian Kirk, I'm still a few weeks away from knowing for certain whether this is just some touchdown flukiness or if this is just going to be the way it is. Like last year, Mark Ingram, we knew it was touchdown flukiness. His usage was such that his fantasy value shouldn't have been where it was. And yet, it happened all year. This could be Christian Kirk this year. He could very well just be that guy this year that you every week say, touchdown flukiness, and every week he delivers. So you look at Sweet Home Chicago's lineup, and this is what's most amazing to me. So Sweet Home Chicago traded away who is now the wide receiver 1 in Tyreek Hill. Did not play with Kenyon Drake last week. He was hurt. Did not play for most of the game with David Johnson, who he started in a spot, got a concussion, left early. Still scored 117 points. This is remarkable to me what we're seeing right now. Again, is he peaking too soon? I don't know. You look up and down that lineup, though. I will tell you, it is tough to find a spot that you could debate is not a strong lineup position for him every single week.
And he's doing it with a quarterback who lost his key cog in DeAndre Hopkins. So Watson is clearly a stable QB. As you know, stable QB is needed to succeed in this league. Yeah,
I don't really want to talk about that, but we're going to somewhat.
Well, I think we should.
We're going to shift it. We're going to shift to it.
It's a situation of where, 2 points might as well be negative points when it comes to a score for one individual player. You might as well just have a 0.
Speaking of, we will move over to the next conversation topic, which is a conversation about bubble teams in OTB. There are a lot of them. We're going to get to that when we talk about our playoff picture in a second. We want to talk about 2 of them right now. The common theme with these 2 is that they're both getting a superstar back. PTT welcomed Michael Thomas back to the lineup last week. We anticipate he will be himself for the weeks to come. We'll find out. And Greatest Show on Paper, we think, is on the verge of welcoming back Nick Chubb, who still, after all this time, not playing, leads the league in rushes of 20 or more yards. So we think there's 2 superstars coming back to lineups that are currently on the bubble. As you noted, we'll call it right away. PTT with a big win against a sidebar team that couldn't muster 8 points from a quarterback spot.
Huge win.
If Tom Brady could have generated 8 points for me,
huge.
But here we are. It didn't happen. So PTT now back not only in the playoff race but in the divisional race. More on that in the next conversation topic as well. So the question, Garcia, is you look at these 2 rosters, you look at the stars they're welcoming back, you look at their current playoff seeding. Who would you rather be right now? Would you rather be PTT or would you rather be greatest show on paper? The floor is yours. What do you think?
Well, I guess if you asked me last night when I beat greatest show on paper by 10th of a point, I would have said, actually, I like greatest show on paper. But then I got an email alerting me of a trade proposal, and I said, oh, this is weird. I didn't get any text messages of somebody offering me a trade proposal for Davante Adams. But lo and behold, the two-headed monster, GSOP, offers up 2 guys for Davante Adams, and I'm wondering, did somebody miss the memo that I'm not going to exchange players in return for this season? I want draft picks. So with that said, I like PTT's chances because of the fact that he is not ludicrous when it comes to the mindset of this game and of this whole objective of winning. GSOP's got some great numbers out of the quarterback situation. Yes, Nick Chubb is coming, but I still think that's a messy situation because of the fact that my guy, Kareem Hunt's on the squad there, and there'll be some share loading of that, and the Browns are kind of a mess, even more so with the quarterback situation, and there's OBJ, so you can't just rely on that. But I like PTT's chances more than anything on that end. So again, GSOP just really needs to kind of watch the show, probably starting from week 1, to kind of understand my whole situation, and text me with an offer of draft picks, not for Mike Evans for Davante Adams. It just makes no sense, and he's now public enemy number 1.
Yeah, first of all, I love it. Second of all, I have a tough time still answering this question. I've been thinking about it ever since I posed it. Because if you look at it, they're so even in the sense of their playoff prospects, right? So on the one hand, you've got a good and very interesting high upside series of players. Both have very high upside quarterbacks. Oh my goodness, Josh Allen and Justin Herbert also. I mean, Josh Allen maybe a little more because of the running, but either way, both quarterbacks playing outside their mind when it comes to fantasy ceiling. PTT.
Well, I guess let's say we pose the question: if either one of those teams had Davante Adams, who would you like better?
Well, in that case, I'd put either team over the top if either team had it. Because you look at PTT, you look at PTT, they have Michael Thomas, who again we don't know yet, but we think Michael Thomas is going to be something like last year, so a high upside, high ceiling guy every week. And Travis Kelce, who is not only a high ceiling guy, he's a high ceiling guy in a position that nobody else has a high ceiling in. So that's interesting. But you look at greatest show on paper. I mean, Aaron Jones, oh my goodness, 40 points, could happen any week. And then Nick Chubb coming back, if he's the Nick Chubb that he was to start the season, it's tough. I think greatest show on paper has maybe a few more supporting cast, the Deontay Johnsons and Swifts and Gibsons of the world, that I like a little more than PTT. However, PTT has something that greatest show on paper does not, and that is multiple paths into the playoff picture. PTT is 5-4, so they can get in on the wild card chase, but they can also get in the division. They play WB soon, so I think I like PTT because of his paths in. But I kind of think I like greatest show on paper's roster a smidge better. If you came to me and argued otherwise, though, it'd be tough for me to say I vehemently disagree with you.
Let me put it to you this way. Greatest show on paper lost to me, and I only had, I think, 8 guys playing because I think Justin Jackson went out. Yep. So, it's one of those things where his team is flawed. Clearly, he's lost his mind with the way he's making trade proposals. He's not paying attention to the surroundings. He's not reading the room right. They. Because I think it's 2 people,
it is 2.
Correct?
It is 2.
Yeah. I'm wondering who actually put that proposal together. Did they actually converse with each other?
I doubt it.
Somebody just bored on the phone. You may know better than I do, but I did counter the offer simply because I felt I didn't want to embarrass them.
Was the counter?
So it wasn't one of those I just rejected it. I made sure they played along with their little game, their reindeer game.
Was the counter fair, shall we say? Did you give a fair counter back?
It's basically just straight up. It's, I think, Gallup, who's going to be on bye week, for Darius Slayton of the New York Giants. I thought that was a fair enough trade, 1-for-1.
I think it's good that you
I could care less about Gallup. I think the Cowboys can care less about Gallup.
Oh, fair point. All right, well, you got a chance to talk about it some more. We're going
to. By the way, I've got 3 wins now.
You do.
Against wristbands, and now greatest show on paper.
That's actually
I'm pretty good about myself.
Of teams to beat in this league, from a rivalry perspective.
When I categorize these wins, one, anytime I beat you is great. When you beat Chris, although it's always a guarantee, and it should never be one of those things that you have to wonder if you can happen, it's a good feeling. And now, after this trade proposal, again, I was a little bit embarrassed. I beat these guys by 1/10 of a point, so it's 1 versus 2. I beat 2 people with less players on roster, and here he is, or they, sending me a trade proposal. clearly, it's even that better of a feeling. Of course, if there's a stat correction miraculously come tomorrow, I'll be hunting you down.
That'd be incredible. There might just be a league office stat correction that might
Yeah.
that. I don't know.
What a surprise.
Remarkable, though. 1/10 of a point. A lot of times, owners do not realize the outcomes of Monday night games. Go, guys, if you haven't seen that yet, because you might have, just went away from that terrible Patriots-Jets game, go look back at the score right now. Literally 1/10 of a point. Sanchez and Butthead was victorious, unlike the last play that Damian Harris was in. Anyway.
And now you got 100 points, baby. Back on the score.
Back on the score. All right, we're going to move over to the playoff picture, and we're going to spend some time. We're going to try to go through it. As you'll see in the email, I'm going to move away a little bit from talking it all out on text. We're going to really put the energy in talking it through in this video. So we are going to start with the playoff picture based on record. Sweet Home Chicago, we have said it, and we'll say it again, is running away with it right now. They are in their own stratosphere, both with wins and their point advantage. Everything else is completely up for grabs. Wristbands is reeling, as we said, 2 straight weeks, sub 75 points. They are now 5-4, 3 straight losses. All aboard the baby bus, surging 3 straight wins. I believe 3 straight weeks of 110 plus points. Granted, again, we can talk about where those points are coming from and whether that is a fragile hot streak, but it is a hot streak nonetheless, and we will honor it. Regulators falling a bit. I believe also losers of 3 straight, maybe 2 straight, I'd have to double check, but Regulators is also not quite where they'd want to be at this point, now down to 5-4. Waverman is the most interesting one here, because even though we've talked about Waverman in the 5 seed forever, Waverman finally is starting to look, with that win against Wristbands, as a viable division candidate. And guys, I cannot stress this enough. Everybody should be rooting for that, unless you're maybe Wristbands. Because Waverman getting out of that 5 seed will help the entire playoff picture because of their points. It will reshuffle the deck so that there are actually 2 wildcard seeds in play viably for most teams based on points. Waverman is 1 game down with a significant point advantage. So we'll get to that in a second. Gronk TDs now slots back into the 6 seed. Gronk TDs has lost 5 of their last 6 games. However, they are still in the 6 seed due to points. We'll start within the hunt based on record, which we classify as within 1 game of one of those seeds that are highlighted. And that would be Phil the Thrill at 5-4, Shipwreck at 5-4, and then Cincinnati and Sidebar at 4-5. So as you can see, there is, a bit of a cluster in the record chase. If that didn't confuse you enough, let's look at points, where you can see now there are 5 teams we classify in the hunt in points as within 100 points. And within 100 points of Gronk TDs is 5 teams. Now, 4 of those teams are within 50 in Greatest Show: Cincinnati, Phil the Thrill, and Shipwreck. One of them you haven't seen in this graphic for a very long time. That was Sidebar, who was close to 200 points away from the 6th seed 3 weeks ago. They are inching their way back. We're not going to start saying that this is a manageable path in for them, but they're at least on the graphic, so I suppose that's a step in the right direction for them. Now within 100. There are a few critical games that I want to draw attention to, but I will obviously stop talking for the first time in 2.5 minutes, and I will throw it over to you, Garcia. What do you make of this wild playoff picture?
It's funny how we just came through a mind-numbing experience of the U.S. elections. Now trying to break down this rough patch of games that has led to a head-scratching playoff picture. I think a lot has to do with the fact that I cannot believe how awful I am at this whole sporting thing, watching how some teams performed this last week. So again, I'm still out of it, but it's nice to see that my misery is now being shared with others. Again, with your point about Waverman, it caught my attention. He's on a roll, and yes, that improvement of his record is going to open up a lot of doors for folks. Regulators has got to be really concerned. Shipwreck's got to be concerned. Wristbands has to be wondering what he's doing wrong, which I think you and I kind of shared last week, and even before that, there was going to be a lot of things wrong for him down the road, even though you were on his bandwagon for the longest time. Again, I'm going to say it right now. If I'm any of those teams, I am just very, very scared of All Aboard the Baby Bus. I do not want to face All Aboard the Baby Bus, especially if he watches one of these segments and hears that Devontae Adams is available for a first-round draft pick of next year, maybe a second in the following year, and a 5th down in like 2030. He's calling me, or he's at least texting me, or he's sending me something via Facebook and saying, I will take him off your hands. So, because he's just missing one player, and I think he's the biggest threat to Ian. Otherwise, Ian's going to roll away with this thing because, let's face it, we're all pitiful.
Well, I mean, it's amazing to me. Yes, you right now have Sweet Home Chicago and everybody else right now. And I mean, to a degree, it's unfortunate because it really should include Waverman based on points. But because of Waverman's record, it really is Sweet Home Chicago and everybody else. I mean, two games that come to mind to me this week that have implications for quite literally everybody in this playoff picture. The first is wristband sidebar. So if you're PTT, if you're Waverman, if you're basically every other wildcard team, you are interested in a sidebar victory because wristbands then...
No one's rooting for you, don't you worry.
No, I'm just saying.
No one is rooting for you.
Well, I'm just saying if
you paid them to root for you, they still wouldn't root for you.
If you're in the interest of your own prospect, that's probably the case, except, or especially if you're PTT, because you could actually elevate to a divisional seed. You could actually be the 2 seed. PTT could be, further removed from the playoff hunt or in the 2 seed at this time next week. That's how remarkably thin it is. The other one off the top of my head, I believe Regulators and Ship play this week. I hope I have that right. If not, it's 2 other teams that are 5-4. I'm pretty sure it's those 2 teams. And in that situation, it's interesting now, right? Because you're going to see this playoff scenario somewhat self-filter because of these matchups where these 2 teams play with the same record. And so now someone will be 5-5 and someone will have a significantly lessened playoff path because of that. If it's Ship a little more so than Regulators a little bit stronger on points. But as you can see across the board right now, when we talk about point strength, we're really only talking about basically 2 teams. And that's the 2 teams that are up by 100 points on everyone else, which is Waverman and, of course, Sweet Home Chicago. Everybody else, I can say, oh, they're strong in points, they're a little weaker in points. That we're all within the margin of error, so to speak, to borrow the election language that is still fresh in our minds. All of these teams kind of within the margin of error. So much so that I will say this in doing the Pyro rankings, I have never had a thinner final number, so to speak, between the 5 and the 10 this week. It was remarkable. You could basically flip-flop the 5 and the 10, and you basically have where the power rankings are. I mean, you have a couple teams at the top, and then everybody else. So it becomes interesting down the stretch.
Yeah, it's funny. It's not a flip of the 5 and the 12. It's only a 5 to 10. So that leaves me out of the hunt. Again, I'm open for business.
I will say, though, for those that are interested, we have never had a team come back to the degree that both Sidebar and Sanchez and Butthead were down in the points race. So that would be a record. However, All Aboard the Baby Bus did come back from post 100. I believe at their worst, they were about 115 points down, which is more, I should say, than where Sanchez and Butthead is down right now. And they had about 5 weeks to do it. We're down to 4. So it's a little different, but they made that comeback. I know that, one anomaly isn't something to all have, this aspiration for, but it is interesting that it's happened. So anybody within that, which is every team right now, should feel like it is not over, because it certainly isn't. And depending on the outcome of some of those flip-flop games this week, very much so, it could be even more of a mess next week, which is interesting.
Now listen, and again, I'm going to reiterate this. The last thing you want is Frankie to have a third piece to a super team. He's already got Dalvin Cook. He's got Patty Mahomes. If he gets the Adams, it's over, folks.
I'll tell you this, though.
I'm talking to Ian. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to Regulators, Shipwreck, Chris. The last thing you want is Frankie to have that piece.
I'll say this, and tell me if you disagree. Because it's interesting that you brought up it's a team that you don't want to face, and I totally respect why you would consider that. When you've got 2 guys between Mahomes and Cook, and potentially Miles Sanders that comes back, but very much less so. I mean, it's really Dalvin and Mahomes. That's the lineup. And that lineup has those 2 spots are putting up 70 points a week the last couple weeks. I would take the contrarian view, though, and say that's exactly the team that I want to face in the playoffs, because that team only scares me for 2 reasons. And if it just so happens that one or both have down weeks, you are almost automatically guaranteed a victory. So it's a little scary to look across the lineup card and see those 2 names. But at some point, touchdown
progression solidified my reason for Frankie to call me or text me with the trade offer for Devontae Adams. So he has himself a little spacing there, a little padding, so to speak. But let's also note the fact that you just can't stand All Aboard the Baby Bus in their process of how they put their lineups together. So it's a little bit one-sided. But again, if I'm Ian, you're at a point where you're pretty much guaranteed a championship the way things are set now.
Yeah.
But if you let Devontae Adams get to a Frankie or to another team, you might be in trouble. So just saying. I mean, Waverman, he knows how to make trades.
I mean, it is amazing. It is not the furthest that a team has been from the pack ever in our history, but it's getting close. And depending on the outcome next week, it could be. because it's remarkable that he's this far removed in wins, especially, and other than Waverman, this far removed in points as well. Sidebar was also a large point gap last year, but there was like three.
Listen, I think it's great you're talking about your team in third person.
I'm the media. And but my point was that there was a million teams that have the same record or very close to that record. It is rare to see a team this far away in both record and points. It has clearly set themselves up. They have some fouls to give, so to speak, as they look at the playoff picture. You don't want to take anything for granted, but they can start to maybe keep an eye on matchups in week 14, 15, 16 maybe if they're trying to set their roster up a certain way. I'm not saying to get that far ahead of it. I'm saying it's of all teams that could do that, it is absolutely Sweet Home Chicago the way that they're performing lately.
Well, again, the top wide receiver is available, and his name's not Mike Evans or Tyreek Hill for that matter, folks. It's Devontae Adams.
Oh, well, you heard it there. Well, he's Garcia out on the West Coast. Sidebar on the East Coast. One thing I didn't mention, remember, the trade deadline is this week. It is Friday, I believe. Close of business. Close of business Friday. So if you've got any other trade offers, I would suggest getting them in to the league office.
And when he says trade offers, folks, he means like legit trade offers. Ones that make sense.
Fair said. All right. Well, anyway, he's Garcia. Sidebar here. Enjoy the waiver wire. Best of luck for the final trade conversation. We will see you again next week.